back, horror fans, cinephiles, and Giallo enthusiasts. This is Tanner Leeser for The King in Giallo, and this is it's episode one, but let's call this kind of a test run. This is a new segment I will be doing called Rat Hole Burn Reviews, and I will just be giving my thoughts on a movie right after I finish it. And I decided to start this series talking about the proto-giallo movies that I have acquired in the past year that I didn't do for the King and Giallo as part of the deep dives, the reviews, the jolly tallies. And the reasons I didn't is very simple, is because I didn't own them at the time. And it's kind of silly, but that's the truth. The whole point of this, it will be that I will be giving my thoughts for the duration of me smoking the cigar. And this is what I'm working with right here. And I'm using this white cigar, which is Inspirado White Toro. Toros are my favorite cigars because they allow for a good smoking time. But, right. Let's see how this goes, all right? Oh yeah, heads up, I spit a lot when I am smoking. Take this microphone out of its holster just so I can be sure that you can hear me. So, the film I just finished was Deadly Sweet, 1967, I want to say, directed by Tinto Brass, starring Jean-Louis Trintignant and Ava Aulin, and holy shit, was it good. Boy, I don't even know where to start. This was easily the most stylistic giallo I have now seen. I believe before seeing this, I had said Orgasmo was, and Orgasmo is definitely one of the most stylish in terms of the tropes. This used a lot of things that I would not consider giallo tropes, but wow. Funny enough, it stars Jean-Louis Trintignant and Ava Aulin, who also co-starred in a giallo film that came out the previous year, which was Death Laid an Egg. And when I seen that movie, I kept saying, okay, this feels like a giallo film that was directed by Jean-Luc Godard, if he ever made one. I have the same sentiment for Deadly Sweet, and even more so. It's more so than any of the other giallo films. This feels like this was directed by a Frenchman. This feels like this was directed during the French New Wave. And gosh, there's so much I can say about it that was just perfection. Like, the plot was very simple and reminded me of Godard's films. It reminded me of Band of Outsiders and reminded me of Pierrot Le Fou, even more so than Death Laid an Egg did. The sound design was also really good. I would say the only other giallo that at this point that I could say that the sound design was better was maybe The Possessed, but the music is good. It's very 60s, very, very 60s, which is par for the course because it came out in the 60s. And I would definitely say that this is a quintessential proto-giallo. So it's not super giallo-y, not like Blood and Black Lace, or even less so than Libido, but God, there's so much to rave about this. Ava Aulin is terrific. She's probably my favorite female actor in giallo films. Like everybody has the the big picks like Edwidge Fenwick and or Rosalba Neri or name your girl, but Ava Olin in the two that I've seen, I know she's in Death Smiled at a Murder or Death Smiles at a Murder. Don't know how to say it. I haven't seen that one yet. She's also in The Double, which I haven't seen, but based off of the two that I have, she is perfectly cast. And I mean, granted, both characters are kind of the same. This this young girl who plays innocent, who may be more, um, she may be a little bit more sinister than she lets on. She nails it. She really does. And yeah, like I said, maybe it is a situation of her kind of being typecast, but she rocks it. Jean-Louis Trintignant, again, he plays a similar part to who he was in Death Laid an Egg, not as sinister, but the character is like very stoic, very I guess I'd say noble, which is interesting. I mean, he's supposed to be a French actor, which he is, so he probably just followed himself around for a year to prepare. Together again, they have really good chemistry, like again they do in Death Laid an Egg. The plot of the movie, in a nutshell, is he's a French actor. He's at a nightclub in London, and he learns about Ava Olin's character, who her father was like in the last week had died in a car accident, and kind of suspicious circumstances a little bit. But he learns about her from a friend who's kind of like, that's Jane, that's her brother who's helping her deal with her grief. Yeah, and but our main guy, what's his name, Bernard, Bernard goes up to meet with the club owner, who is like a business associate of his, and he finds him murdered. It looks like he got clunked in the head with like a candlestick type of thing. And she's in the room, and she's like, I didn't do it. And even though all the signs kind of point to her, he goes on goes out on a limb to say, I believe you. And he kind of whisks her away from there, and he takes it upon himself to undergo this investigation, this to solve who killed him. And along the way, some other people get killed, and they're getting chased by these thugs who I couldn't I wasn't entirely sure if they were associates of the club owners, or if for some reason they were after him. I think they were associates of his, but yeah. And so there's a lot of danger, there's a lot of romance, there's the movie breathe it takes a lot of time to just breathe and have fun, and the editing is really incredible. One of the best aspects about the movie is, I mean, its pacing is great, but the editing is really top notch. And I've never seen a film by Tinto Brass, so I was not expecting it to be like this. Like, I hate to keep going back to Godard, but so much of it reminds me of Godard. And there's a scene where I think they've already slept together, which again, this is a little odd watching this now in 2024 when Ava Olin is doing some of these like nude scenes and such, and she's like 17 when they film this, 16 or 17. But so he's meeting with her the day after that they've kind of hooked up, after he went and checked on this person, and I'll get into that. That was great. But they meet in like a cinema, and it's playing one of those newsreels, like when you'd go to a theater to kind of get some of the world news, and their conversation is being intercut with clips of Israeli forces fighting. I think they're called the RAU, and then it's showing clips of U.S. Marines fighting against the Viet Cong. That type of stuff is like things you would see in Pierre Le Fou in Godard. And another thing about the editing that was really, really great was it would cut from the color to black and white. And at first it seems a little random, because it would do it in like the middle of a scene. It wouldn't be like an entire scene is now in black and white. It would be like one moment is in black and white. And I kind of picked up that I noticed it was mostly like scenes of peril, scenes of like the height of action. And turns out that there wasn't really a reason in terms of stylistically why it was done. I guess Tinto Brass said that there were just some parts that he wanted to be lit a certain way and they couldn't accomplish what he wanted it to look like. So he was like, just film it in black and white. It'll be fine. But it's good. It's so good. And this movie came out, or it could be argued that it set off the Fumetti Neri type films, the films that were very much like comic books. And so there's a lot of split screen, there's a lot of triple split screens in it. And the style of the film is both beautiful, intriguing, very fun, but it also makes you think, as a film like this should. And it's funny because I'm coming off the heels of watching Slaughter Hotel the other night, and I think I'm not going to try and talk about Slaughter Hotel, but I did not like that movie. And I always say that sometimes you need to watch a movie more than once to really chew on it, to really kind of ponder, like, did I really like this movie as much as I did? Did I really hate this movie as much as I did? Um, Once you go through a movie a second time, you kind of know what you're getting into. You know how the plot goes. You're more familiar with the pacing. You know the parts that you want to rewatch. You know the parts that you should rewatch because maybe you weren't paying attention or you didn't really quite understand how one scene then led to the next. So I do need to watch Slaughter Hotel a second time, although I'm dreading that, and I should watch Deadly Sweet a second time. But as far as just comparing the two, watching one a few days ago and then watching the other one just now, like Slaughter Hotel is something that I would barely call a movie. It felt, I mean, I've said this in a few things, but it felt more like they were shooting a porno film and they got asked, hey, do you think we could maybe like throw a horror movie together using the footage, using the actors? And they were like, let's see what happens. And it's definitely an exploitation film. The gore is very not good, but the sex is just like what I would call obnoxious. It's doesn't serve the movie in any way. It's just kind of like, hey, let's show breasts, let's show bush, let's show all that. And the nudity in Deadly Sweet was very, very artfully done, very well done, very tasteful. There's a few sex scenes, and the way they're shot, the way they are edited is just they're it's almost like I would say maybe a masterclass on how to do these types of things, how to do very adult things, very risque things, and do it in a way that is palatable and presentable, and people that might be more off put by just that stuff by nature, or will be more willing to accept it. And another thing about this movie, now, every once in a while, there's some stuff in a giallo movie that makes me crack up. Most usually, it's unintentional. Like I've said that whenever Carol Baker gets killed in an Umberto Lenzi film, it makes me crack up, and I'm pretty sure that was not the intent. It's just the movie goes from like 15 to 80 real quick, out of nowhere, and it's just like jarring and hilarious. This movie this movie legitimately had moments that were funny, and Jean-Louis Trintignant's character was funny, and he was funny the way he did these scenes. So when he first meets Jane and he takes her to his place and he tells her that he will go and investigate this for her, you just stay here, I'll go do it. He goes in, and so he's in the house of the guy who he recently just found dead, and like the safe has been broken open, and then suddenly these guys are coming in who announce, or I think he just believes they're police, and so he hides. And really quickly they find him, and he kind of is trying to just play it off like it's no big deal that he's here. And I'm trying to remember what the poster is. There's a lot of pop art in this film, and there's a mad poster behind him, and he basically just looks at it and looks at the speech bubble and just says what it says, and he says it in English, which is funny. And he's kind of just trying to play off the whole thing. And then one of the goons basically like takes off Jean-Louis, takes off Bernard, I guess I should say the character's name, takes off Bernard's glasses, like he's about to fuck him up, and he doesn't want to like the glasses to get in the way. And so Bernard, like kind of trying to play the whole situation down, he takes the guy's glasses off. And then they start fighting, or the one guy just starts beating them up. And it's funny, every time there's like a hit in this movie, like during the fight scenes, it cuts to like pop art. It's like ow, bang. So yeah, the part of it kind of feels like you're watching like an old school Adam West Batman. And the guy kind of knocks him down, and Bernard crashes to the couch where he like moments earlier had stowed his the gun that he found. And so he takes the gun out, and suddenly he's got like both the guys at gunpoint. And he he beats up the other guy because now he's got the advantage. And yeah, the violence, or like the tense scenes like that are handled. I mean, they're still tense. It's not like the situations are downplayed, but they're also funny. And then there's some other parts like later. This also goes to the style. Bernard's character occasionally monologues, not too much, but occasionally monologues. Like he's in an intimate scene with Jane, Ava Aulin's character, and they'll be talking like back and forth very slowly, and then he won't say anything, but you'll hear him say something in his head. And then there's a part near the end where he looks into the camera, which was great. So he breaks the fourth wall. Um, Anyways, then there's great extended chase sequences where Bernard and Jane, he rescues her at one point. Something happens where she gets kidnapped by a dwarf, which was kind of funny. And he rescues her, and then like the next scene or a couple scenes later, they're being chased by the thugs that he had beaten up. And funny enough, one of the thugs, whose name is Jelly Roll, has a little Hitler mustache. No reason, at least I don't think there's a reason, but they're running, and it's so funny how like I'm trying to think of the movie that this reminded me of, but like they're in danger, but they're also kind of having fun. And gosh, they run like all over. All of a sudden, they're in like a dog race, or they're running through the subways. They're running through the streets, the subways. Um, and again, it's like tense, and it'll cut from the color to the black and white, and then they lose them for a moment. They hop onto a subway. The guys hop onto the subway too, like a couple cars down, and he tells Jane like, "Go here. I'll meet you there later, but I'm gonna just like lose them." And so the subway stops. He gets off, starts running. They start chasing after him. Then they're running across the town, and there's a really humorous part where he runs around like two trees a couple times. And they're following him, and it's just like he's literally just running in circles. And then he ends up at a dog race, and at one point he's running, and he just turns to them and goes, "Stop!" And they do, but then he keeps going, and they keep going, and then they eventually corner him. And then they're then trying to interrogate him, tell him where this item is that they're looking for, and they're beating him up. And again, this is where the editing was like really was impressive, where again every time they're hitting him, it kind of was flashing to a light bulb. And I don't want to spoil too much if you haven't seen it, but it's just like I could see some people not liking it, thinking it's too flashy or it's too jarring, everything. But I think the style works really, really well in the movie's favor. And then going off of some of the other goofy things, uh, Bernard will then also like quote people. Like he'll quote this Chinese poet. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. And then later there's a part where he quotes Michelangelo Antonioni, and then the next scene they're outside of a cinema, and there's a poster for Antonioni's film Blow Up, which I don't know why, but it was great. And then also referencing the scenes that were blatantly funny. So we already established that her name is Jane, and he makes a Tarzan reference. He's like, "Well, I'm Tarzan," and there's at least 3 scenes that take place at a photo studio, very 60s, very giallo. And I think this is the second time where he's like kind of tells the photographer, his buddy, he's like, you can get lost. We're gonna kind of hang out a little bit. And he's taking photos of her, and she goes behind like, well, I guess you'd call it a tarp or something. It's some like sheets, some like films that are hung up, and she starts undressing. So you're seeing her silhouette, and he, he finds a drum set and he starts playing the drums, and it's like terribly synced as far as like the drum sounds and like what he's doing, which is like, I mean, that's typical for an Italian film. But she starts undressing more and more behind this screen, and he starts getting like really excited the way he's playing, and he starts going faster and getting more into it. And then at a point she's essentially entirely undressed, and it then goes to fast motion, and I can't say I've seen this in a giallo because it's just goofy when you see it. Like, you'll see slow motion for intense scenes or whatever, but he also stands up and starts undressing, and it's all in fast motion. And then he howls like Tarzan, and he grabs onto this rope, and he just swings down and like kind of slams into her, and then they have you know a very nice erotic sex scene. But it was so, I don't know, pleasing. It was just satisfying. It was just the humor in the movie, because you don't typically see that in a giallo film, at least, again, not intentionally. And usually it's maybe just like a line, or maybe it comes off corny. Like Argento will use comedy, but it's very hit and miss, and usually it's because of a quirky character who's usually a gay character, and it's just like, oh, he's so silly. Hey, look at that, I got a rat hole burn. Yeah, this honestly, I was trying to think as I was watching it, things that I was like, like that could have been better, that could have different, like, because I was always thinking of Slaughter Hotel, because I just recently watched it and I had hated that movie so much, and then I was also thinking of Death Laid an Egg, because the next year, and it was the same lead cast. And I remembered when I watched Death Laid an Egg, there was like, I did really like the movie, but there was also a lot of stuff that I was like, I kind of wish that was a little different. I kind of wish they did that a little differently. But this movie, I can't say there was anything that I wish they did differently. It's just, whereas Death Laid an Egg kind of felt like it was a giallo mixed with some other types of movies, Deadly Sweet also kind of felt like it wasn't, through and through a giallo. It was kind of more like the secondary genre, subgenre that the movie was working in. But it felt, it just felt very French New Wave, as I've already said. But so I wasn't saying, boy, I wish this was more Jallowy. It was kind of like, what, I really like what this movie is doing, and I'm fine with it. And yeah, there were moments that were just maybe because it's Italian, like with the voice syncing and stuff. There were a few things that maybe were like a little like, that was a little goofy, but not coming to mind right now. But I just remember that part with the drums. I was like, oh, this is kind of bad. But then it just became funny. I'm like, okay, he gets a pass. Like that was funny. Like forgiven. I'm trying to remember more of the things, like I'm watching this movie and I'm like, God, I feel like I should be taking notes, but I don't want to. I don't want to stop it. Like the movie was well paced, so I didn't want to like stop it. But I'm taking like 50 plus notes in my head. Like, I got to talk about this, got to talk about that. Um, but really early on in the movie, I did have to message my friend Nathan, who I've done the Giallo adjacent podcast with, and I told him, I was like, dude, we need to talk about the Jean-Louis Trintignant, Ava Aulin Giallo films. We need to, like, he hasn't seen Death Laid an Egg, and he's the person that I said you need to see this movie. But when I was watching Deadly Sweet, like already only like 30 minutes in, I messaged him and I was like, you need to see Deadly Sweet and you need to see Death Laid an Egg, and we need to talk about them. So keep that on your radar. Hopefully, we do end up doing that because God, I bet he has a lot to say. But yeah, this movie kind of solidified it for me in terms of Ava Aulin being my favorite female actor in Giallo. Uh, like I said, she nails the part. She is essentially typecast for it. The everything I said about the relationship between the two characters in Death Laid an Egg for this movie goes even stronger because you actually see way more of their relationship. It's not like, again, I'm kind of always saying I'm kind of saying the same things. Like I always mention Pierre Le Fou, which is a guy who's married who goes off, like, abandons his life and starts like running around with this young woman. And in this movie, Deadly Sweet, Bernard is not tied down to anybody else, so he's more free to carry on this little uh, it's not an affair, this little love, this tryst, and it feels very real. It feels very organic. It's every once in a while I see a movie with a romance, and it just reminds me of those days of like not like I don't have romances, but the type of relationship they have. Like she's very, I mean, she does say in the movie, I'm 17, which again is like, but in terms of, it reminds me of like high school relationships or those early college relationships where even though she is like, developing into her adult self, there's a part of her that she admits in the movie that she doesn't want to grow up, and she's like, it makes her cry when she thinks about herself being older. And so there's a lot about her that is very, like, I guess I'd say spunky and very just like fun. And I don't want to say childish, but she does act immature sometimes. And then it again goes to him being more stoic, where he's kind of has to be more stern with her. And they just have a really cute relationship. And I wouldn't say it's like like, oh, it's such a great one and it's healthy, but it's just kind of, it just reminds me of those types of like fleeting romances, and you're not really sure what's going on, you're not entirely sure what the other person is thinking about it. But yes, it just felt very real, very human, very organic and natural. And okay, I did remember something that for the movie that I was like, not sure if I like that. There's a part where, hold on. There's a part where he rescues her. He and her brother Jerome rescue her, and they're escaping the place where she was being held. And this is like kind of like middle of the movie essentially. And he confronts her, and he's basically like, "You lied to me." And she's like, "What do you mean? What are you talking about?" And she's very coy like that throughout the movie. Like she'll say one thing, and then when she gets caught, she'll be just like all eyes, all like mouth, acting very immature, very like, "Ooh, who, me? No, I didn't lie." And he's like, "Yes, you did. You said you didn't know where your brother was." And she then essentially pins it on like, "Well, I didn't. This other person did." And you know, slaps her, and she ends up getting kind of emotional. Like she starts getting really teary eyed, and she runs off. And then he runs after her, and she like runs onto a double decker bus, and he hops on. And then they're both sitting in the top talking, and the way it's shot is really cool. And then you finally get a medium shot, and you see they're actually sitting across from each other in the aisles. And so this was the thing I was like, okay, I'm not sure if I really like that. For some reason, everybody is taking an interest in them, so it keeps cutting to different people who are all of a sudden just like looking up and watching them, and they're looking very disturbed, as if he's either being aggressive with her, or she's being, or they're being very like over the top flirtatious, and nothing really seems to warrant why all these people are so focused on them. And then as the scene goes on, it has all these shots of people like looking out their window, and the bus is moving, so this doesn't really make sense that all these people would be like what the hell's going on there, and like they're watching these people that are moving, I don't know, 35 miles an hour in a bus. Like first off, how can they even see them for that long? And one of the shots that was really funny is they pointed out, and they're just like, all these people are looking at us, and it just cuts like montage of like 5 different groups of people looking out their windows, and one person who's not looking out their window at all. I thought that was funny. But yeah, that kind of felt not forced, unnatural. It just felt like, okay, how would this happen, and why is this even happening? But that was probably the silliest thing in terms of like, okay, well, that wouldn't really happen in real life. And then they kind of start to make up, and the people in the bus are like they're suddenly like smiling, like, oh, it's working out. It's like, why do you guys care? But she's being really cute with him. Like she's like, do you still not believe me? And he's like, no. And she's kind of like trying to like look him in the eye, and he's trying to resist her, and she's just being really like cute and charming, and he's just like, mm-mm, mm-mm. And she tries to go in to kiss him, and he kind of like stops her, and then he's like, keep trying. So yeah, no, dude, I really like this movie. And hold again. I I was telling myself that when I would review these 60s proto-giallo films that I didn't cover on the channel initially when I was running through the 60s, that if I came across one that I liked, or I would try to just say, where would I put this in my top 10 ranking? Would I kick out some movies? And I would. I think I had So Sweet, So Perverse, which was another early 60s giallo film with Jean-Louis Trintignant. Well, I say early, I mean not early 60s, like 61. It was like 1969, but early in terms of giallo film. Sorry. But that I still have as one of my least favorites. It's just not my cup of tea. I would say it's boring. It's kind of slow, and I kind of feel like I'm Carol Baker doesn't do the coy, innocent, but maybe she's actually more sinister thing nearly as good as Ava Aulin does. And so whenever I'm watching those types of movies, I'm just like, yeah, don't trust her. Yeah, why are you getting close to this girl? Yeah, she's obviously like playing you. But I rank this movie really high. Like it's kind of hard. Again, it's as far as a giallo, like it's hard to rank this because I feel like a lot of people are going into watching these films with an expectation. And my summary of Deadly Sweet is that it plays again more like a French New Wave film, French New Wave crime thriller. It definitely is giallo, but it's like if I was ranking giallo films and saying like, well, obviously Blood and Black Lace is way more like what the genre is, but I have to say I think if I had seen this film and I was throwing it in that top 10 of the 60s, it would at least be in fourth place. So that would be behind The Telephone and Blood and Black Lace and The Possessed. Um, Part of me kind of wants to put it maybe even higher, but again, I should definitely rewatch it and see if I still stand by that. The reason why I would keep The Telephone above is because The Telephone I just thought was like perfect for a giallo short. Like this is a giallo in 25 minutes, and like I said, I want to direct that as a staged one act. Blood and Black Lace, it's kind of hard to rank it higher because Blood and Black Lace is one of the like top three trendsetters of the genre, and so I might enjoy it more than Blood and Black Lace. Do I might. I really might. I think the movie is so strong, and like a lot of giallo films, Nathan and I kind of talked about this. You kind of have to know what you're getting into, and this is why it's hard for me to like show these movies to other friends who aren't like big cinephiles, is because I feel like this movie is going to be too boring for you, or it's going to be too corny for you, or you're not going to appreciate what I appreciate. And I do kind of get that with Blood and Black Lace. Like, you know, it's going to be hard for me to show that to a lot of people who aren't already like excited about the genre, who've already like seen a movie or two, or who are interested in getting into it. Um, this movie though, yeah, I could say like, but again, this is it's also very European. It's like, I don't know, have you seen any French films from the 60s? That's what it plays like. But yeah, I'm getting off. Essentially, I would put this in the top 10. I would say at least number 4, if not maybe shit 3 or 2. And like I could even see it competing against The Possessed for my favorite, but like it is up there with The Possessed in terms of just how well done it is. Like, yeah, The Possessed is very well done in a more serious tone, and it is very stylistic, very artful, but it's more relaxed. So much about this movie was just again so well done, so masterfully edited. Like I think I would have to say the editing was the strongest thing about the movie. The writing is good. The writing is not bad. Um, that's probably the most. I would say it's maybe the most deceiving thing that it's not a French film, but even then, a lot of the stuff came off as French. Like I said, the Bernard's character, like when he's like randomly monologuing or when he's quoting people, I'm like, God, this feels like yeah. So I'm trying to think what else to say about the movie. If you haven't seen it, I would definitely say check it out. Um, I got it on DVD from Cult Epics, which was the same group that distributed uh, Death Laid an Egg. Sorry, it's near the end of the day for me, so I'm starting to like my brain's starting to rot a little bit. Um, really good. I'm sorry, but I'm not sure if it is streaming anywhere, if it is on YouTube or if it's anywhere to rent. But yeah, and so I'm part of me wishes I saw this before I saw Death Laid an Egg, and now I'm really wishing that I had seen Blow Up first. Like I'm about to watch Blow Up in the next weeks or next month or so, but for Giallo adjacent. But considering that it he quotes Antonioni and it has the poster, I'm like, God, I wish I've seen that movie at this point. What else can I say? Like I said, the cutting to black and white was really cool. The pop art was all over the place, and the editing with comic book type stuff, it's just really cool. Yeah, honestly, I don't know what else to say. The only thing I would say as a warning is there's no spoiler. You're not seeing killers walking around like a trench, killer in a trench coat, black gloves, and like killing someone. Like, I think you see 3 dead bodies. I want to say I think you see 3 bodies that are already dead, and then there might be a kill that you see. But yeah, so if you're going into it expecting like a very like through and through like typical type of slasher giallo, you might be disappointed. But if you go into it just accepting that, again, this is a giallo from the 60s. This is a proto-giallo. This came before Bird with the Crystal Plumage. This came before a lot of the other ones I covered. So there are elements of the genre in it, but as I have said on the channel, the genre was not totally a full-fledged thing. It was still kind of it was sort of a film element that some directors were choosing to explore a little bit, but it wasn't like an official, like, yes, this is giallo. This is something that we can kind of create and pitch and sell. So in terms of the 60s, it's probably it feels like the most 60s also of the movies. Ooh, you know what? Orgasmo is pretty 60s, as is Death Laid an Egg. But yeah, no, this is great. And in terms of the other 60s Jali that I will be covering in this way, I'm going to also do The Sweet Body of Deborah, which I almost did first, but then I realized, you know what, this movie came out before Sweet Body of Deborah, but I think I will be doing that one next, and then I will be doing A Black Veil for Lisa, and then I will be doing The House That Screamed, which is a Spanish horror film, Spanish giallo, and I will try to cover the other movies. It's just they don't have home video releases. Some of them you can find on DVD, but it's like a lot of movies get released on DVD one way or the other. So I know there's some that I could track down, but like one of them was in a double pack with another movie. But those movies didn't jump out to me as like, oh, this is a one that's worth seeing. And Deadly Sweet was definitely one that was noted as like, this is pretty cool. You should check it out. So that's I think that's all I got. I was kind of wondering if the cigar would last. I was wondering if I would not have enough to say, and I feel like maybe, I don't know if it's that I don't have enough to say, but it's I feel like I've said enough. And so I'm going to end this Rat Hole Burn reviews, and this was the first one, and I might be doing this in a different location. I'm kind of tied to being outside because I am smoking a cigar, which I don't know if you enjoy this format. I just thought it was an interesting idea to be doing it on the time of, I've only got like what, 40 minutes depending on how fast I smoke it. But yeah, thank you for watching. I hope this was enjoyable. And this is Tanner Leeser for The King in Giallo. And if nothing else, I'll see you next time.